Jeremy Carl was nominated by Donald Trump. Jeremy Carl has a long record of, let's call it, charitably white identitarian writing. He's been nominated to a top State Department job. This is not a random advisory role. This is really a position that can shape American policy with regard to the UN, with regard to global institutions. This is a big deal position. We've got to take it seriously. And when you ask Jeremy Carl to explain his white nationalist or white identitarian beliefs about a loss of white culture and all this stuff, not on a podcast, not on Twitter, but by answering questions under oath in front of the Senate, it very quickly falls apart. Here is Senator Chris Murphy, a Democrat, asking Jeremy Carl really basic questions like, what do you mean white culture is losing out and is being is evaporating, and like what are you talking about? It did not go well, and in fact it went so poorly that there's now a Republican senator who says this is not someone that I can support. Check this out.
Tell me how you define white identity and what you think is being erased about white identity.
Certain types of Anglo derived culture that comes from our history.
Like what?
Let me think about this.
You know, you might have wanted to think about it when you started writing about it.
You know, Senator, I would say if you were to look at the book by one of your former Senate colleagues, Born Fighting, about the sort of Scotch-Irish military culture and certain, pride that went with that, that would be one example. Obviously, you could have sub-elements of that culture. You could have Italians, you could have Irish, and those are in many ways more distinct.
You're worried about white culture. You're not worried about, you're now retreating to ethnic identity. You don't speak about ethnic identity. You speak about white identity. So tell me the values that stitch together white identity and that make it different than black identity.
I would say that the white church is very different than the black church in terms of its tone and style on average. Foodways could often be different.
And those
music could be different.
And those are being erased.
Music could be different. If you look at the Super Bowl halftime show, which was not in English this year.
So our ability to access white churches or white food or white music is being erased?
I am concerned with the majority common American culture that we had for some time that through particularly mass immigration, I think has become much more balkanized, and I think that weakens us. And again, I'm not running away from that comment. I'm not apologizing for it.
The great replacement theory. Yeah, a theory. Okay. It's the realest thing there is. And it's happening not because unseen hands are orchestrating it, though clearly they are, but because the native peoples of all these countries are participating in it enthusiastically and then enforcing its rules against anyone who questions it. So in Great Britain, if you were to say, wait, what the hell is this? This looks nothing like the country I grew up in. Guess who's going to arrest you? Your fellow Britons, the ones whose great-grandparents lived here, the whites. They're the ones totally determined to eliminate themselves.
Hello brothers and sisters, welcome back to the channel. I'm hoping that you are doing great from wherever you're watching this video from. As you know, I'm your host and presenter Eugene Tech Stories, and thank you for all who are tuning in. I just got a hiccup when I was trying to introduce the video. Now, brothers and sisters, some of you might have known Jeremy Carl. Yeah, Jeremy Carl, as I think this is on the David Sparkman show. He went ahead in public and, he really embarrassed himself, because what he was trying to say, Jeremy Carl has written a couple of his works in line with the white culture being wiped out. So there's this enormous fear of white culture being wiped out. So he goes ahead and explains to people that it feels like as time goes by, the white culture is being wiped out by POC, people of color. That's including black people. Yeah, we understand. The first time I heard that Trump nominated Jeremy Carl, you already know what's going on. You already know how all this goes. The same type of people, the same type of person with the same type of ideology. This is a perfect example of people who think that other people's growth, other people's existence threatens their existence. And this has been how majority of these people think. This is in line of how they think, because they know that they are losing ground. They are losing ground because they are being outnumbered. They are being outnumbered because they don't want to accept the truth. The world is seeing the truth for what it is, but they don't want to accept that. So the fact that they have a feeling that they are being outnumbered, they are projecting their fears. They are projecting their fears by first creating mass fear to white people. This is what they are doing. And you can see the scarcity mindset that also Donald Trump has. See, the scarcity mindset that Mr. Donald Trump made him took a lot of South Africans, because perceivingly, he thought that South Africans were suffering in South Africa. And so the panic and the fear of white people going extinct, like, it is something which is looming so much into these people. And all we can see, they are trying to project that. That's what they are trying to show people. Brothers and sisters, I'm going to let you watch this video, and then I'll be back. I'll be giving my 2 cents in regards to this. And as you know, I'm your host and presenter, Ideologies Stories. If you're watching me for the first time, I'm asking you to please subscribe to the channel, join the membership, and really get to see what I can offer you. But until then, let's watch the video. I'll be back.
For 5 centuries, before the end of the Second World War, the West had been expanding. Its missionaries, its pilgrims, its soldiers, its explorers pouring out from its shores to cross oceans, settle new continents, build vast empires extending out across the globe. But in 1945, for the first time since the age of Columbus, it was contracting. Europe was in ruins. Half of it lived behind an iron curtain, and the rest looked like it would soon follow. The great Western empires had entered into terminal decline, accelerated by godless communist revolutions and by anti-colonial uprisings that would transform the world and drape the red hammer and sickle across vast swaths of the map in the years to come. Against that backdrop, then as now, many came to believe that the West's age of dominance had come to an end, and that our future was destined to be a faint and feeble echo of our past.
Hi, I'm Kylie, and white conservatives are terrified of POC outnumbering us. And I truly believe this is the motivation behind a lot of hateful policies in the US. If you haven't heard of the Great Replacement Theory, it is that over time, if enough black and brown immigrants come to the US, as well as white people having children with POC, then over time, POC will outnumber white people. And the reason that this is so unsettling to a lot of white people, especially conservative white people, is that they are terrified that if POC become in power, then they will treat us like we've treated them in the past, which is obviously not great. It involves subjugation of people, enslavement, assault, violence of basically every kind. And I think that white people can feel the shift happening as they are becoming more and more outnumbered. And that is why they are clinging so tightly to power in Congress and with the president right now. And that's why it's so funny when white people deny that racism exists, because if they didn't think racism did exist, they wouldn't be scared of being outnumbered. But they understand the ways that we have treated people of color has been atrocious, and thus they are scared of the tables turning and of being in that position of subjugation.
I just heard a white person say America was great before diversity. Do you mean before the Europeans came and colonized it? Like, what are you talking about? Europeans came here, they immigrated here to indigenous lands owned by indigenous people. There were already indigenous people living here. They came here, they colonized it, and then they kidnapped African Americans, forcefully brought them to this country in the millions. And you have the audacity to complain about diversity in America. Who set that system up? Who set it up? Like, do you only support immigration when white people are doing it, or when people are brought here against their will? No, I support immigration as long as it's legal. Was it legal when your descendants immigrated here and killed off and displaced millions of people? And this isn't to say that you can change what happened or that you're responsible for the centuries of cultural genocide committed by Europeans. But the least you can do is support diversity. Like, what are we doing?
We need to have a talk about Marco Rubio's speech in Munich. It's really been bothering me. People are so used to Trump and Vance speaking with vulgar, coarse language that when they heard Marco Rubio give this speech with more traditional diplomatic language, I think casual observers were willing to overlook the dog whistles and messages of white supremacy. I think it went right over their head. I encourage everyone to watch this speech and think about a few of the things that I'm going to tell you about now. Dog whistles all over. He begins the speech, he's talking about this great shared history that we're a part of in our relationship with Europe, celebrating missionaries and explorers. And you can see right away what he's going for is this rewriting of history, moving us backwards. In other words, we're talking about all these glories of the explorers and missionaries colonizing people, enslaving people, plundering people. And he's trying to take this white supremacist approach that shows our conquest as our cultural superiority. And he tells Europe that they need to be strong and not be shackled by guilt, which is a weakness. And this is following Trump's idea of changing our curriculums, so not to talk about slavery, to tone it down. You know, we have Prager University going around for the 4th of July celebration, so-called Freedom 250. And, you know, there's a movement to not even say slavery anymore, but I forget the word they want to use, involuntary migration. So maybe you can help people remigrate. So he's trying to talk about the superiority of Christian Western culture and pointing to the Renaissance and the Sistine Chapel and Columbus and all these great achievements of Christian Western civilization. I remember Edward Galeano in The Open Veins of Latin America talked about that, how you could have literally built a bridge with all the gold, silver, and bones of indigenous people that were conquered from Europe to where they plundered in Latin America. And like the white Christian nationalists, he tries to paint this picture that all our achievements of the university, of science and culture are white, Christian, and Europe. And he's leaving out the fact that all these things actually benefited and grew from influences all over the world, particularly the Muslim world. We know that in the Dark Ages, that the works of Aristotle and Greek philosophy were saved by the Muslim world, particularly when, you know, they were lost, destroyed, when we fell into this dark period, kind of like where we are now of anti-intellectualism. And Islamic scholars actually preserved those texts, built on them, made incredible advances. Columbus was sailing using navigation created in the Islamic world, the compass, paper from China. It's just ridiculous to try to claim this religious and cultural superiority. So then he goes on to talk about the anti-colonialist movement and the revolutions and social upheaval as godless communism. And this running idea of how religion is used to pacify, control, and dominate people. And we see it very clearly in the way that Trump moves. There's a very specific type of religion they want. We see it. It's one that goes against empathy. It's one that claims this kind of superiority. We look in the Epstein files and we see they were actually trying to overthrow the Pope. And we see now, even in if you really go deep into the algorithm and get these crazy MAGA things, They're against the Pope. When the Pope tries to say we need to all get along and respect one another's religions and all moral, thoughtful, spiritual behavior, they all lead to the same place. MAGA hates that. And we see these white Christian nationalists only accept one type of religion.
Europeans never wanted to be European. Not when it mattered. Not when it cost them anything. Not when it meant living with the consequences of their own designs. The only time they clung to the title is when it gave them unearned leverage, colonial credentials, or moral immunity. From the moment the term Europe was carved into stolen cartography, it was less an identity and more a loophole, something to invoke while extracting, then discard while retreating. The Irish fled Britain's empire and begged for American assimilation. The Italians stormed Ellis Island while trying to become white. The Germans dropped umlauts and donned cowboy hats. The French pretended Algeria was part of France until it wasn't. The Portuguese fled Angola and never looked back. The Dutch tried to hide Suriname in their back pocket. The Belgians committed genocide so horrific they erased themselves from the narrative. The Spaniards screamed Latinidad to wash off the stench of colonizer blood. And the British, they faked accents in Australia, Miami, and Dubai, until no one could tell who actually belonged anywhere. They've spent 600 years colonizing the world only to spend the next 60 trying to sneak into it. They built the myth of Europe as the center of civilization, then couldn't wait to become expats in Bali, retirees in Panama, or digital nomads in Morocco. They run from European winters, European taxes, European accountability, and European history. They beg to be treated as Western when convenient, white when advantageous, individuals when accused. They perform Frenchness at wine tastings, Britishness on Netflix crime dramas, Dutch pragmatism on bicycles. But when it's time to account for war crimes, debt peonage, or cultural theft, suddenly they're just human. Europeanness has always been a costume, a mask worn at Versailles and stripped off in Barbados, a passport with no return address, a vibe more than a people. The only unifying trait is escape. They never wanted to be European. They wanted European to mean domination, not origin, victory, not culture, inheritance, not responsibility. And now as the world spins past them, they beg for identity like squatters trying to prove residence in a house they lit on fire. Cope.
I think it's so funny that whenever someone in America complains about immigration, the first response, besides of course calling you a racist, is to suggest you go back to Europe. It's wild how if you're of European descent, you can inherit the sins of your great-great-great-grandfather, but not the civilization they built. And I mean, I feel like if immigrants are coming here to enrich us with diversity that we so desperately needed, then wouldn't that be the same for the European settlers that came to America? Maybe they were just asylum-seeking refugees, spreading diversity and inclusion to a new continent. And I just think if America isn't anything real or specific to begin with, then why can't we bring America to them? What's stopping us from recolonizing? Because if y'all are just here to exploit the infrastructure, then why shouldn't we just come to your country and start building again? Just like the good old days. Because you're telling me to go back to Europe, I'm kind of hearing a revival of the British Empire is what you want. Because I know how much y'all love that British Empire. And by the way, I can't just go back to Europe because this is happening to every single European country at the exact same time. Every single minority in the West has a country where they would be the majority. And white people of European descent are already the global minority. We're anywhere from 7 to 9% of the population, yet we're the only group mass immigration has been forced upon. Because what you're advocating for is not even an expansion of equality or even equity for that matter. You're arguing for a double standard that because of my skin tone, I deserve to be dispossessed out of my homeland. Only feeble-minded, groupthink, anti-whiteness studies majors think it has anything to do with colonization at this point. It's a lie. Plus, mass immigration is being forced on European countries that never colonized, never had slaves, and never had an empire, such as Ireland. Simultaneously, mass migration is not being forced on other countries that did have empires, such as Japan, Turkey, Mongolia, or any of the Middle Eastern states. Also, more people have come to Britain in the last 50 years than in the entire 5,000 years prior. And come to think of it, all places where white people have been the minority, how'd it work out for them? Because we could look at South Africa, Asia, French Algeria, Haiti, because decolonization is just code for ethnic cleansing, but make it woke. It's when you get rid of white people, but keep everything they built on the land for yourself. Because these people fled from their own countries because they didn't like the standard of living there, but they think that standard of living should be forced upon all of us in our countries. In fact, they think these countries don't even belong to us because our government has done an amazing job through media, institutions, and education of creating an environment of anti-whiteness. No racism is tolerated except for racism against white people. This is good and acceptable according to US officials, because at the end of the day, America was always meant to be a place where people of all backgrounds could get together, throw away their differences, and hate on white people together. And it's so inclusive that even fellow whites can join in on the hate. And if they don't, we'll just accuse them of being racist. So I've decided I just don't care what false labels people put on me because, I just don't care. And throw your biases to the side for a second. Just think about this completely detached from your own experience. Because it really doesn't make any sense for only and all white majority countries, the biggest threat to them being too many white people. Because it's a threat to who exactly? So how does that make sense? If we're controlling our governments and we're controlling the world, why is the one group of people you're allowed and encouraged to discriminate against and that are not allowed to have equal representation if every single other group of people has a homeland and a government representing them? Why do you think we're in control of the government? Why do you blame us for the government's actions? The more you think about it, the more absurd it is. We are allowed to have our own countries just like everybody.
Diversity is good, but too much diversity will kill a country.
I mean, technically, when all the Europeans arrived in America, they made it more diverse. Because before it was just Native American tribes and, indigenous people. And, well, I think we all know what happened to a lot of those indigenous people. So, I mean, this guy's ancestors probably killed a country. Or what could have been a country. So, I just think it's interesting that he says that.
It fails to make me laugh to hear a European complain about America or the Greenland situation, because they did it entirely to themselves. It was Europe that elected the leaders that allowed somebody like Trump to gain so much power and traction. And it was Europe that elected the leaders that allowed their own countries to devolve into such a fucking state of disarray. The reason why Europe can't present a united front against the United States is because of the leaders that they elected. The leaders that destroyed their own countries. There's a reason why Britain is essentially a third world economy attached to London. There's a reason why Paris is a shithole. And there is a definite reason why Poland, the one that is closest with America, by the way, is the one that seems to be doing the best out of the entire EU. So yes, Europeans did it to themselves by electing liberal governments that refuse to take a hardline stance against what is obviously an up-and-coming imperialist power. Not to mention the fact that every single EU state is exactly what they criticize America for. France's colonial empire never ended. Look at the way that they treat immigrants that are in their countries. Look at the way they talk about America. Americans have never talked about Europeans that way. Americans do far better accepting other cultures into their own. It's ridiculous.
Europeans pretend they aren't Europeans. They'll call themselves American, Australian, Argentinian, South African, as if the soil didn't remember who docked the boats. They'll say we're different now, as if accents erase ancestry, as if renamed borders rewrite bloodlines. They pretend the colonies just happened, that they were born there, as if plantations were hospitals, as if growing up on stolen land makes it yours, instead of just making you complicit. They'll say that was the British, as if Canada didn't perfect the boarding schools. They'll say that was the Spanish, as if Latin America wasn't carved up with both sword and sermon. They'll say I'm American, as if that word isn't the final act of erasure, as if the nations buried beneath their suburbs no longer speak. They'll wave new flags, but keep the old maps. They'll sing new anthems to the same stolen land. They'll write pioneer in textbooks, build suburbs on mass graves, and name them Whispering Pines. They'll post land back on Instagram, but fight res expansions in court. They'll teach civil rights while locking migrant kids in camps. They'll adopt black culture and call the police on black people. They'll say, I'm not European, but benefit like one. Visa waived, passport respected, borders optional, language demanded. They'll pretend they aren't European until the airline check-in, until the embassy extraction, until the war starts. And suddenly, their skin remembers. Cope.
So apparently the Europeans are acting up again. Ironically, they want to complain about immigration. Who's gonna tell them, hey, European Australians, you're the immigrants? And honestly, I understand why Europe throw these people out of their country in the first place, because everywhere they go, they're destructive. The Europeans in America, the Europeans in Australia, the Europeans in Palestine. Every land they touch. Of course, honorable mention, South Africa. And then they have the audacity to be like, this is not about race. Then invites a neo-Nazi to their rally.
Prominent neo-Nazi Thomas Sowell was a keynote speaker.
If we do not stop immigration, then our death is certain.
Who's coming after you? White supremacy is embedded in every aspect of our society. And if we have any hope for humanity, we need to uproot white supremacy from the root and get rid of it. If not, it will be the end of humanity.
In 1945, Britain ruled 700 million people. 20 years later, they ruled 5 million. For decades, European powers had colonized nearly every corner of the world. So what happened after World War II that precipitated the end of European colonialism from Africa to East Asia? Well, the biggest factor was money. World War II was incredibly expensive. Britain's war debt, for example, reached 270% of its GDP by the end of the war, a burden so large that the final loan payments weren't complete until 2006. The country that once financed global trade now owed billions of pounds to its own colonies, particularly India. In fact, this accelerated Indian independence. When American loan conditions required pounds to be convertible to dollars, colonies rushed to convert currency, which drained British reserves. And the decision to leave was already made, but Britain was forced to execute the final transfer of power in just 10 weeks after.
Hello brothers and sisters, welcome back to the channel. I'm hoping that you are doing great from wherever you're watching this video from. Again, I'm your host and presenter Tech Stories, and welcome back. Let's talk about it. Somebody goes in and writes some articles in regards to the fear that white people, white culture is gonna be erased. So let's talk about it. It goes ahead and says that there is a looming fear of white culture getting erased. That's his article, right? And he's got any right to write anything he wants to write, provided that it is empirically proven, it is scientifically proven, and it has been confirmed that that's indeed what is happening. So, somebody's fearing that white people will be extinct, white culture will be wiped out. I mean, let's just be honest about it. How many times have these same people, when we talk about Jeremy Carroll and Donald Trump, we know they are from the same school of thought. They are the ones that Black history is propaganda. They are the same type of people that believe that when a person teaches Black history, they are always trying to associate it with propaganda. So many times we have seen Trump trying to shut down the Black history because he goes ahead and says that that's a propaganda. That's spreading hate. That's being anti-American. You've had it all. So tell me, what is propaganda in this sense? The fear that other people's growth is making you extinct. Make you go write an article talking about them. For the longest time, your folks or your group of people have really tried to erase the black culture, to take away the black culture and make it look like it's yours, to erase black history, because you know very well that it contains the truth, some of this truth that you don't want black people to have or to know. And you know it very well. You know that that's just the truth, and that's just the truth of the matter, and that's just how it goes. You know it very well. You cannot blame black people for their growth. You have your own factors. You have your own issues that is making your culture being wiped out. And you know that. It is not even about black people. Black people have nothing to do with this. Black people are just trying to grow themselves. So tell me, how is this making your people go extinct? It is just the same fear, because you have the same school of thought with Donald Trump, thinking that the growth of other people makes other people go down. These people don't believe in collective growth. They don't believe in that. They have never believed in that because they don't subscribe to that school of thought. Black Americans are only 13%, so don't blame black people. Don't blame black people. So when a white person cries about the loss of their culture, how come nobody's asking what culture, like what exactly in their culture is being lost? Because majority of what you all call is your culture, you have taken it from black people and changed it, refurbished it, maybe if I can use that word, and make it yours. So, my question is, what's that you call yours that is really yours? Right? Because all of these things that you are saying it's yours, it ain't yours. It ain't. It's not yours. Let's just be honest. Let's just be real about this. You know what's crazy is Trump's grandparents are not from America, like most white people. Yet I'm black and my great-great-great-grandparents were born in America. But the white people claim it is their own and think that they are better than us. We are the real Americans and didn't even want to be here. That's why they hate us. That child in pink shirt needs to shut down. She is full of No one thing she said had anything that resembled facting. They know they are wrong and they are doubling down and literally showing people what they are, a waste of skin. Oh my God. Marco Rubio is a Cuban American who thinks he's white. Yes, he is fine with ice kicking Cubans, some with green cards out of America. You should ask Vivel Ramaswamy how that will work out. Ramaswamy got his own lesson. Ramaswamy learned the hard way. That's the problem, and that's why their empire is collapsing. They are so worried about us while they destroyed each other in the process. We are not protesting, just watching how now they will be oppressed by an authoritarian or dictatorship government in which they voted for because of hate, thinking it will destroy us. Every plot white America had for us always backfired, causing much pain to them historically. It is just a reflection of their hate. So this is not surprising, new to us, or anything different than what we've experienced in the past. So where's the news? Racists have been put in position that they don't belong for years. And not only the United States citizens, but the world knows that this is what America does. No surprise here, in my opinion. There is no surprise. Right? When America started whiteness, didn't even existed. They will never talk about that part. They're taking from indigenous people. How couldn't that happen? Barack Obama, great president. Kamala Harris, great potential president. Educated, calm, thoughtful, with a VP prospect of similar hick, who wonders the US consequences of DGT as a president. The history of DGT was out there in the open, no secret. Yet people still thought the uneducated, the bully, was a better choice. They FA. Now they're finding out. I don't think our people got to worry about white people. We should be focused on each other's helping each other. We should put down the drugs and alcohol for the love of money, because if you look up to any celebrity, football player, actor, singer, girls, black actors and singer, they have suddenly sold to get there. And that's the only day you keep forever, and they'll sell it something that you will never own. We got to put the aid out for each other in the disrespect. We got marrying white people and having kids with them because we took it look like we never be another Jim Crow. Can black people hate each other? We just respect each other. But it was Jill Dennis for 500 years of slavery, and it's still going on now. They played chick fil-a, R&B, and gave us gangster rap. Now we fill up the prisons in the graveyards. So brothers and sisters, let me know what you all think about this, right? I mean, I want to know your opinion in regards to this. I'm your host and pre-center Agent Stories, but until then, see you in my next video.